As the Strait of Hormuz becomes the center of rising tensions, U.S. President Donald Trump has issued his strongest warning yet to Iran. In an expletive-laden post, he demanded the reopening of the key shipping lane, declaring that Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day if ships are not allowed through. And he reiterated his threat to unleash hell if Tehran fails to meet his April 6th deadline, although previous deadlines have been shifted, and Trump now says there is a good chance of a deal. At sea, the ships remain anchored near the mouth of the strait, and on land, both crew members of a downed USF-15E have now been rescued after a two-day operation inside Iran, described by Trump as the greatest and most daring rescue operation in U.S. history. Meanwhile, Iran has warned that continued escalation could set the entire region ablaze. And drone attacks have struck energy facilities in Kuwait and a petrochemical complex in Bahrain, while the Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon. Is the confrontation entering a new phase? And are energy and infrastructure now direct targets? And is there still space for diplomacy before Tuesday's deadline? And I'm Salma El-Fiki, and welcome to this special coverage. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that negotiations with Iran are going well, but warns of severe consequences if Tehran does not comply with U.S. demands. Trump told reporters that while talks with Iran of a bridge connecting Tehran to northern Iran in a Wednesday strike. And Trump further warned that unless Iranian leaders agree to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And tensions between the United States and Iran are escalating as both sides have issued strong statements regarding the opening of the strategic Strait of Hormuz. And U.S. President Donald Trump renewed his demand for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz and issued a fresh threat on social media, and warning that if Iran failed to comply, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, hinting at severe bombardment of the Iranian power stations and bridges. Earlier, Trump reaffirmed that Iran has 48 hours to strike a deal on opening up the strait or face hell. In response to Trump's threats, Iran has said that the Strait of Hormuz will never return to its former state. And Iran's supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, posted on social media that the Iranian people's will is to continue effective national defense operations, and the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic leverage, must continue to be utilized. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy Command announced on the same day that its forces are completing operational preparations to establish a new order in the Persian Gulf, asserting that the Strait of Hormuz will never return to its former state, especially for America and Israel. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai condemned Trump's threats to attack Iran's critical infrastructure, including energy facilities, as incitement for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And he affirmed that Iran will respond decisively to any attacks on its infrastructure, including striking U.S. or related facilities. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf said on the same day that Trump's actions are dragging the United States into hell, causing suffering to every American family, and that the entire Middle East would be engulfed in war due to Trump's insistence on following Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's policies. And for more analysis, we are joined from Cairo by Nurhan al-Sheikh, the political science professor, and Talat Taha, the political analyst. And welcome to Qnews. And thank you so much for joining me here today. And I will start with Dr. al-Sheikh. Trump has now escalated his rhetoric, warning that Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day in Iran if the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened. How significant, if you can tell us, is this explicit threat of targeting of infrastructure, sir?
Good morning, and thank you for having me with you. Actually, as you mentioned, it is a highly escalating speech from Trump, but nobody can ensure that he will go forward in that, because you may know that Trump, in many times before, threatened Iran with opening the hell, etc. But at the latest time, he retreated from his warning. This is the first of all, so nothing ensuring that, but we all should discuss what would happen. Actually, there is not a threat only to Iran, but the problem that Iran will also attack the infrastructure of the Gulf states, the GCC. And this is a problem. It means that the whole region will totally or nearly destroyed. The infrastructure for energy will destroy it, not only in Iran, but as well in the Gulf. That may affect the whole world economy and will cause a disaster for all countries, not only for Iran or GCC. So I think if there is some wise or rationality, Trump will not go ahead, because the consequences will be destructive for all, and for the whole region and the whole world, and even the United States.
Mr. Taha, Trump's Truth Social post, as I just mentioned earlier, used explicit language, demanding Iran, and I will quote, "open the strait or live in hell." How does such a rhetoric affect calculations on both sides?
First of all, what Trump said, it is not likely that he'll do this, or he'll destroy the whole region if he does this, actually, because Iran will be responding by striking the Gulf countries and Israel. And then just what you mentioned, Trump said, he said in another post just minutes later, he said that he'll be extending the deadline another 24 hours. And this is basically a message. It's him saying that he doesn't want further force and aggressions, and he doesn't want a war anymore. As you know, Iran has been really powerful, and they could cause losses to Israel, actually. And then also on another side, negotiations are happening in Pakistan, or they are preparing for negotiations that could lead a ceasefire. But Iran said that they want some guarantee, because they don't want to end up like Gaza or Lebanon. Because as you know, even after a ceasefire was agreed upon in Gaza and Lebanon, Israel violated both of these agreements just in a matter of days. And so if Iran has completely lost, actually they would have accepted all of Trump's conditions, but this is not the case, actually. You know, Iran has caused losses to Israel, and they have destroyed the US bases in Gulf countries. And Iran's conditions want the IAEA to be responsible or monitoring the uranium enrichment levels and the nuclear program. And they also want a full ceasefire on all front lines. But they actually could compromise.
Yeah. Dr. al-Sheikh, as we can hear, Trump reiterated his April 6th deadline, but also at the same time said, and I quote, "there's a good chance of a deal." How do these mixed signals affect the diplomatic credibility, in your opinion?
From the early beginning, Trump talking about a deal and Iranian surrender, etc., and he mentioned later on that 15 points for peace and for ending the war. So he is talking that much about peace, but actually, in reality or on the ground, he didn't take concrete steps toward peace. Vice versa, what we are seeing is escalating and more escalating when he pumping bridges, etc., continue attacking the infrastructure of Iran, threaten to dominate Kharj, etc. All that escalating for the war. And actually, I think Israel playing very a crucial role in that, because now Israel is preparing, and the military leaders have meetings to decide what exactly the bank of gold of the Iranian infrastructure should be attacked. So maybe he's talking a lot about this, but on reality, he didn't take concrete steps. And the most important step is to convince Israel to stop the war and not attacking civilians and infrastructure goals. Otherwise, the war would continue, and the circle of the war would be wide.
Mr. Taha, the U.S. president described the rescue operation as, and I quote unquote, most daring in the U.S. history, and reports indicate that the CIA involvement in the mission. What message do you think does this send to Tehran?
He wants to send a message saying that he can have a ground operation or an airspace operation, and he also wants to say that he can actually abduct any of the officials there, whether it be the supreme leader or another one. And he actually nothing is that impossible for him. He could locate the missing crew member in Iranian territory, and so this is such an important step for a U.S. win. But actually, I don't think that such heavy bombardment will happen, because they know that Iran will be targeting back, and they will responding, and they'll be targeting U.S. soldiers and U.S. forces. And if Trump really wanted a ground operation or any of the operations that he has talked about, he wouldn't have asked for Iran's permission or said that he'll attack them if they don't do so. And so wars always depend on the element of surprise and force, and not just statements and warnings. And so when they located the missing crew member, they did not say that they will be having an airspace operation, getting the crew member and then going back to the U.S. They just did it, and this is how wars work. But the message that Iran is also sending is that they can use or can actually down the advanced U.S. aircrafts like the F-15, the one that was actually targeted and downed, and they forced it to go back to the U.S. even if some part of it fell on Iranian territory.
Dr. Al-Sheikh, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf has warned that the region could burn and accused Washington of reckless moves. How do you interpret this warning?
I think because Iran, from the beginning of the war, whenever the Israel or United States attack Iran, usually it is vice versa attacking GCC countries. And not only GCC, Iraq involved, Jordan involved. The attacks reached Turkey, reached Azerbaijan, Cyprus, Yemen, now Houthi involved in the war. So if you look to the map, it is true. If United States, Trump threatened hardly Iran, yes, you will not be able to reach United States, but it will really burn the region, and the whole region will be the same the military operations for both sides by a way or another, and that will be very dangerous, particularly that military operations and attacks would reach the infrastructure, energy infrastructure, water stations, etc., etc. That it is very vital. So we will be in front of not only an economic disaster, but more important from my point of view, a humanitarian crisis in all the region, and this is very dangerous. Hopefully, Trump would retreat and would rethink about what he is doing.
Yeah. Mr. Taha, Iran's reported drone strikes now on Kuwait's energy facilities and desalination plants. Does introducing infrastructure into this equation now cross a new level or a new threshold?
It is a war crime, attacking energy facilities and desalination plants. This is a war crime, even if the U.S. and Israel have done it. No country has the right to attack or violate a neighboring countries just because it is a neighboring and has the interests or basis of other countries. This is a total disrespect of international law and even neighboring. If the Iran's facilities, like energy facilities or water desalination facilities, get hit, they will be attacking back and attacking the Gulf countries' infrastructure specifically. And this is another war crime. And so we're talking about two war crimes here, one from the U.S. side and the other from Iran side. And if this happens, around 10 million civilians will not be able to use the water there. Around 80% of the people living in the Gulf countries depend heavily on the desalinated water in the Gulf countries, and then Iran is also using the eye for eye strategy. If they attack a bank, for example, they'll attack a bank in response, and if their infrastructure gets struck, they'll strike the Gulf countries' infrastructure as well. And so even if we exclude the U.S. bases in the Gulf countries that Iran is supposedly attacking to just to retaliate, but I don't think that it's actually true, because or we haven't seen these U.S. bases striking back. There was not a single bullet that was fired from there, but Iran has or keeps attacking these Gulf countries and other countries actually were included, like Iraq and Jordan, with the pretext that there are U.S. citizens living there, even though there may be U.S. tourists in Iraq, and this is also a war crime. And so both sides are just trying to pressure each other in a way that we cannot accept anymore.
Yeah. Dr. El-Sheikh, the second F-15E crew member has now been rescued after a 2-day operation, as announced by Trump. What does this reveal about the U.S. Military or U.S. Operational reach inside the Iranian territory?
Trump mentioned that it is a great operation and a great victory, etc. But I think it was very hard one. Can you imagine how many planes destroyed? For sure, some American soldiers injured or maybe died. We don't know. There is no full information about what happened.
Yeah, nothing was announced.
Yes, exactly. But I think the real message from Iranian during that operation, that it is very difficult to put on the ground in Iran, and that land operation, if Trump go ahead in it, it will be a disaster for the Americans and the United States, because Iran is not an easy country, not military, but geographically, etc. So I think that may help to to push Trump to reconsider and to rethink about that land operation. Hopefully, what happened during the rescue operation would help and would push him to retreat from that plan. And I think within the United States, there is a wide trend pushing forward to stop the war and to stop the upcoming land operation. And I think that rescue operation was a test or examine how far Iran is not an easy country to dominate. Yes. By putting on the ground.
Yeah. Mr. Taha, if the Strait of Hormuz remains partially restricted, as it is at the moment, what immediate scenarios, can you tell us a little bit, could unfold in the coming days, considering Trump's deadline? What's your thought? What would be happening next?
We are facing a crisis because of the Strait of Hormuz closing, and it can actually be followed by Bab el-Mandeb Strait being closed. And as you know, around 20 to 25% of energy ships go through the Strait of Hormuz, and then another 5% go through Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and so this is affecting everyone. Now, as you know, the oil has gone up to $114 now, and I think that if this closing continues, it will go up to 150 or even more. The strait can be just closed easily, but reopening it can take up to days or even months. Even those companies that closed down because of these strikes cannot or will not be able to just rebuild themselves overnight. They need at least 3 months. And so if Trump actually does what he promised, and he said that he'll open hell on Iran and attack Iran's infrastructure, energy facilities, and desalination plants, I think that Iran will also be doing the same thing in Israel, all over Israel actually. And so this will be such a crisis for the U.S. as well. And so if the U.S. wanted to win, or they have already won, they would have ended this war and gone back to the negotiation table and reached a compromise that satisfies both sides and actually has the approval of the UNSC and the IAEA. The U.S. is not the savior of the world and not a peacemaker in the whole world, because we've seen all kinds of operations happening from the U.S. We've seen what's happening in Palestine as well.
Dr. Sheikh, let me move now inside the United States. Both the Republican and the Democratic lawmakers have been sharply criticizing Trump's language. Do you think there could be domestic political pressure constraint preventing escalation on Trump, or it's not going to hold him back?
Actually, the pressure exists since the early beginning of the war, but it is more and more now criticized Trump, and the pressure growing dramatically. At early beginning, it was from Democrats, but now even within MAGA movement, there is a wide criticism to Trump. Because they all against the war, and he promised that there is no war. If you remember, during his campaign and after, during last year, I think, he was usually mentioned that he is a man of peace, and he succeeded to end 7 or 8 wars. And suddenly he started a very destroyed and very wide war, destroying the economy, affecting the day-to-day life of the Americans. You follow how far the price of oil raised in the United States. We are talking about $5 to a gallon, and this is very crucial, very harmful to the American citizens. So hopefully that pressures would succeed. With the whole circumstances and the whole or what happened during the last operations, including the rescue operation. But unfortunately, there is another packing to the Israeli role. There is another factor which is very crucial, very affecting on Trump, and it is the one who pushed Trump from the early beginning to the war, which is Israel and Netanyahu. And unfortunately, their attitude from the war didn't change it up to the day.
Mr. Taha, Trump has shifted deadlines before so many times. So if the Tuesday deadline is not met without any escalation, does this weaken his position or preserve diplomatic flexibility, in your opinion?
Actually, diplomatic leniency is the way to go now. And so if we depend on Trump's promises or statements, things would have gone south a long time ago. He said 2 to 5 to 7 to 10 days. He just keeps changing deadlines and timelines. And so if there is a war, he wants to get it over, and then he wants to get it over with, he would have striked the run from Washington. But we actually listen to everything that he's saying. I think that he's angry. As you know now, the war has been going on for 37 or 38 days. There have been casualties from all sides. Infrastructure has actually fallen down in Israel, and facilities have been destroyed. And so all of this shows us that the deadline that Trump keeps changing, he can actually give Iran another day after Tuesday. I can say that he'll extend it for 24 hours in a message, in a message that is trying to send, just telling Iran to save them, and this war that Israel had the U.S. slip into is, Israel and Netanyahu was the reason that that convinced Trump to go into this war. And yeah, Israel won't take long to listen to the U.S. and Netanyahu told Trump that the U.S. is the greatest force in the world, and that this war will just be a matter of a few days and they can end Iran once and for all. But everything that's been happening is a shock and something that they did not consider, both the U.S. and Israel. And now there is a division in the U.S. administration itself. They did not expect Iran's resilience and this advanced weapons and responding back. And so on a political and civilian level, everyone is angry with Trump. He promised peace, and he promised peace to the U.S. and to the whole world, and he talked about ending like 8 wars, and he promised and sweat actually that he'll end the war on Gaza, but this is not the case. He just smiles and says things that have nothing to do with the situation.
Yeah. Dr. El-Sheikh, now can you tell me, where does Russia stand in all of this? Can you tell me what is Russia's relation now at the moment with Israel and with Iran and the U.S.?
I think Russia now is standing strongly with peace and stability in the region. Yes, it helped Iran because Iran helped Russia a lot during the Ukrainian war. Yeah. Its relation with Trump is very good, but they can do nothing in pushing him toward peace. And it's also GCC are very important partners for Russia. So Russia with peace and settlement. But what can Russia do in that pushing from Trump and Israel toward war? It needs the whole world actually to move to impose peace in the region.
Yeah. Mr. Taha, let me ask you, energy markets are watching closely as the Gulf infrastructure is targeted. Could economic pressure accelerate negotiations, do you think?
US citizens have been just trying to stop this war because the oil prices have gone up. This is the highest oil price in the history of the U.S. and so they have just been calling for a stop to this war and for the economy to go back to how it was. And so what's been happening so far is that everyone is suffering on an economic level because of this war. And then in the European countries and countries like China, as you know, 75% of China's production depends on oil that comes through the Strait of Hormuz, and so everyone is not happy with Trump right now, and not from the U.S. The decision-making process is in the hands of Trump now, and not the actual U.S. administration. Trump wants to be the leader. He wants to represent the U.S. He wants to send a message that he can start a war, and he's the one that can end it. And so yeah, all the countries now are affected actually, and we've seen countries like Germany, France, Britain, Canada, even the richest countries in the world are now calling for a halt to this war as soon as possible because it has affected everyone and has caused a surge in oil prices, and there is it is likely to go up even more. There are economic predictions that can say that say that oil barrels can go up to $200, which is around 4 times its original price.
Yeah, Dr. El-Sheikh, looking ahead, are we closer to a negotiated arrangement, do you think, or a sustained regional confrontation centered on energy and sea lanes, as we can see at the moment?
I think that what is going on will continue for some time. The peace is still a little bit far concerning what the United States is doing and continue attacking Iran, and also the 15 terms Trump is stuck with. So I think the peace is still a little bit far, but hopefully the escalating of the war will not go more than that. Otherwise, the whole region will be in a very critical and dangerous situation, the whole world actually.
Mr. Taha, reportedly, ships are now anchored close to the strait's mouth, suggesting a de facto maritime standoff. Is the battleground now shifting decisively to the sea?
There are ships that have gone back after they were destroyed, and now they're here near the region, like the U.S. boxer ship, and then there are ballistic or there are missiles actually, and drones. All of these that Israel and the U.S. have sent to the region, just waiting for Trump to tell them or to give them the green light and to tell them to go ahead. But yeah, all of this can actually stop if they reach a ceasefire, and then we need a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire, and then maybe they can reach negotiations through the Quad Summit in Pakistan.
Yeah. Dr. El-Sheikh, at the moment, there are just now statements from Iran talking about a Pakistani agreement that includes lifting sanctions. What do you think about regarding opening the Strait of Hormuz? And it's being reviewed by Tehran. What are your expectations? Reportedly, that ships are anchored close to the strait's mouth and suggesting a de facto maritime standoff.
Iran declared it clearly many times that Hormuz will not back to what it was. They are higher the ceiling to impose some tariffs or so, but I think that is for negotiation, that's all. But in fact, Iran, the first and the most important demand for Iran now is stopping the war and end the war forever, not just a ceasefire. And I think that lifting sanctions very important also demand, but it is not only the one now Iran asking for, because unfortunately the United States also didn't pay that flexibility to lift sanctions. Up to the date, United States didn't give concrete signs and real signs that it would lift the sanction, unfortunately. So all that will complicate the negotiation, and the United States has a real responsibility of that to give some guarantees, because before United States, there was ceasefires in June, and suddenly Israel and the United States started war again. So Iran wanted to make sure that this will not be repeated. And also GCC, they need to have guarantees concerning any attack from Iran. So it is very complicated negotiation, but hopefully it will work and it will go ahead.
Yeah. And that was Dr. Nourhan El-Sheikh, the political science professor, and Mr. Talat Taha, the political analyst. Thank you so much both for your valuable insights. And that brings us to the end of this special coverage. Thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned for more updates on Q News.